Okay, you're good. So everyone, this is Nicholas John Wilson today on Penn State Room 6, and he's going to talk about fostering students' ICT skills through English. So Nick is an elementary school language teacher, and currently he is in Nagano. Is it Nagano?
Yes,
Yes,
Nagano
Nagano.
Prefecture.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so Nick, please take it away.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for coming. As you said, the keyword here is ICT skills through English, not in English. And this, I'm gonna go on this later on as we move, but it's a really important keyword. So first of all, what's the situation right now? Well, I currently teach in elementary schools, and we're currently trying to adjust to a new way of teaching. And this was also because of the coronavirus situation that's pushed a little bit more towards using ICT in the classroom. But what I'm trying to say here is this presentation is not about how to teach online, but it's how to use digital skills, how to teach students how to use the computer in your normal school setting. And this also works in case of online teaching, but that's not the main point here. So as I was saying, there are two main points I want everybody to keep in mind. Number one, this is not about online teaching. And number two, this is about teaching ICT skills through English and not in English. The context is the English classroom, and practicing a foreign language has to stay the main priority. So we're not teaching how to use the computer. We're teaching English, and through our standard lessons, we're also giving the students the chance to foster digital skills. So moving on, I want to start with a quick icebreaker, just to give you also an idea of what I usually do in the classroom. This is kind of like a place where students can start and think together in groups. And we're going to use Google Jamboard, which is basically kind of like, for those who don't know, digital whiteboard. So I'm going to share the link in the chat box, and please open the file. And the link is here. So let's move over there. So as you can see, I can see everybody that's joining right now. It's anonymous. You don't have to register through your Google account. And here, what I want you to do is, could you please write some, you can use these. I see there are some sticky notes on your left. Please use the sticky notes and answer the following questions. For example, number one, for example, what is your relationship with technology? Let's try with this one. What is your relationship with technology? Do you like technology? Do you hate it? Do you use it every day for your work? Do you use it in school? Go ahead, copy, do the same as I did. Just click on a sticky note. You can choose a different color and share your answers so we can all have an idea. I'll give you a little bit of time. Okay. It's a very love-hate relationship. No more Microsoft Teams. Okay. Anybody else? It's tough, but it's worth it and necessary. Okay. So in the meantime, I'm gonna put another question. I'm gonna choose green. I'm gonna be like, do you think we always need to use ICT in the classroom? Is it always a good choice? If not, why? And I'm gonna put this over here. Technology is awesome, but it seems often teachers use it just for the sake of using it. No, this kind of connects also to the other question. Often you don't actually need it. It takes away from the main aim sometimes. Yes. Enjoy using it and the students really like it. Variety is the spice of life. Yes. Not always, but it should be utilized properly given the current situation. Okay. Also, when the zombie apocalypse hits, what are they going to do? Fair enough. Okay, so this is one example of using technology in the classroom. So I usually use this at the beginning of each unit, and I ask the students to go through the pages of the new unit, and I ask them, okay, what do you think this unit is about? Or what are you most looking forward from this? What do you think is the purpose? And usually, I mean, in the usual setting, we might ask students to raise their hands and kind of be like, okay, tell me what you think. But yeah, it can be an asshole, yeah. And by using this system instead, we're giving them the chance to express more of themselves without actually put them on the spot. And with everybody looking at the answers, it also helps, okay, getting the right mindset. So this is a good way of using ICT. You don't need to, I wouldn't use this every time, but more like at the beginning of a unit or when you want to start a project or something like that. See, you can move things around. And the teacher, one other thing is the teacher can actually see everything. And if you don't like something, the teacher can edit. So you're still in control of your classroom. You're not just letting the students do everything. All right, let's move back to our slides. So this is one example of an icebreaker you can use in a classroom. This time we used Google Jamboard. There are different other options depending on which system you use. So these are the 4 main points I'm going to talk today. Point number 1 is our evolution, then what to expect, the apps and resources you can use, and how education technology and English mix together. So first of all, so we're going to talk about why and how this is happening now. And the keyword here is the GIGA School Project. GIGA School Project is basically something that MEXT has begun in order to foster students' digital skills. They say that the goal for them is to basically foster students who will live in the society 5.0. So for society 5.0, they're talking about basically having students work together on documents, even if they're far apart. So it's not just about teaching online, it's about a new way of collaborating. And in order to do so, basically MEXT has been giving schools, it's already started depending on where you live and where you teach, but basically every student has a digital device. And this can be iPad, it can be laptop, Microsoft laptop, a Surface, I think that's the mostly used one, or it's the Google Chromebook. In my situation, we have been using Chromebooks. So basically now it's not about just having in the past you had the computer room. Now instead, students can actually use computers or tablets the same way they use textbooks. So they don't have to move to a different classroom. They can just do everything there. So what to expect? I mean, it's not just here, this is your computer, now have fun. There are different things that you need to be careful. First of all, the drawing board. There are no rules. While the government has given the devices, teachers don't really know what to do with these things. There are no official guidelines or kind of like practices they can actually start using from day one. So it's kind of like you learn as you go. Then another problem that I was kind of surprised of it at first, but then it made really sense. It's digital divide. And by digital divide, I mean that you have really a difference in skills between the students. Some students have their own tablets already at home, so they're pretty fast at using. You tell them, please write a write a sticky note, and in 2 seconds they were already put it there and change the size and the color and everything else. But other students are actually touching a tablet for the first time, so they don't really understand what it means to use something like a digital sticky note. They're like, so that kind of like throws you out of balance at the beginning. Again, don't lose sight of your goals. You're not teaching how to use a computer. If, especially in the English classroom, you're spending 40 minutes teaching them how to turn on a computer or how to use a Word, and you're doing just 5 minutes of English, then you're definitely out of it's not what you should be doing. New rules. We're used to, especially teaching English, eye contact, stand up, sit down, sit straight, things like that. Put a bunch of 25 students in a Zoom in a Zoom group. You're going to start having people not muting themselves. They're going to start writing each other on the chat. They're going to start showing things, sharing whatever they want to share. So it's a new set of things that you have to teach before you actually do the task. So whenever you try to introduce something new, just think before what the students need to know and how they need to behave with this new tool. Resistance. Many schools and many teachers are still not really convinced about the purpose of ICT in the classroom. And then again, it's about really identifying the goal. Why are you using ICT? It's not just, hey, instead of using a pencil and a pen, now you're going to write everything on your computer. It's finding new ways. And I'm going to talk about this in the next slide. And then Murphy's Law, you're never wrong with that. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So take it with philosophy. There's going to be a lot of things that don't go the way you were hoping. So try to learn from mistakes and share that also with your students, because they're also learning a new way of learning. Yes, so be flexible, remember your goals, show a purpose to try to fight resistance. And in order to solve the problem of digital divide and unbalanced skills, there are two ways. One, in any case, teach things step by step. So start with simple tasks, move an item around or something like that. And two, try to give students roles. So for example, if one student at the beginning, he doesn't know how to use the keyboard, don't let him use the keyboard. Ask him to move pictures around the screen and put a picture on the slide or whatever. Or ask him to look on the textbook how to write a specific word. That's still keeping them inside the loop without putting pressure on them. So talking about apps and resources. So what can you expect? What can you use in the classroom? First of all, you need to keep in mind that we're talking about, especially in my case, elementary schools, public elementary schools. And there is one big problem, which is privacy. And another big problem, which is they're young learners. So you cannot expect students to have their own email address, and you cannot expect students to use their email addresses to register to other websites or things like that. There are lots of great resources out there, but unfortunately, they request students or teachers to register to other services, which come with a price, come with privacy problems and things like that. So what I'm going to show here is what comes together with the GIGA School project. So what MEXT has already thought of the package that you get standard, which is what you definitely can use in the classroom without worrying too much. First of all, cloud storage. So all the students will have an online folder where they can save what they make, and they can share files and pictures and whatever. Or processor. I mean, might it be Microsoft Word? It can be Google Docs. It depends on which kind of system you get assigned, but it's the same purpose. It's the same practice. An app to write documents. Spreadsheets. We all know with Excel and things like that. And there are different versions of Google Sheets, Excel, and so on. Presentations, PowerPoint, and so on. Online meetings, might it be Zoom, Meet, Teams, digital whiteboard, the Jamboard or Microsoft Whiteboard, and so on. Classroom, digital classroom, might this be Google Classroom or Apple, and so on. Forms, World Map, this probably one of the best is Google Maps, and audiovisual software. As I was saying, there are many alternatives. The big three alternatives that come right now in Japan are either Microsoft, Apple, or Google. But what I want to tell everybody, what I want everybody to know is that it's a matter of thinking. It's not a matter of, oh, I know how to use PowerPoint, but I don't know how to use Google Sheets. It's a matter of how do we teach students how to make a presentation? As again, we're not teaching them how to use the computer. As long as they reach the goal of making a presentation, they don't really need to know all the specifics and the secrets, menus, and so on. It's about, okay, we're going to make a presentation, but why? What's the purpose? And here comes the fusion, education technology with English. So this is the meat of this presentation. So first of all, we have three keywords: goals, language, and digital literacy. By goals, I mean the goals that are set by the curriculum, the English curriculum or the foreign language curriculum. So what are the students, what do the students need to be capable to be able of saying, or what kind of conversation, what kind of questions, answer they should be comfortable using by the end of one unit. And that has nothing to do with digital tools. It's just about talking. The target language. So what's the goal of the entire unit? And the digital tools. So this is the plus one that we're now considering here. So first of all, how do you introduce these skills? As I said, you should go step by step. And by step, what I'm currently doing now is starting from 3rd grade until 6th grade. By 3rd grade, it's pretty easy. You give them a chance of touching these devices, and you can set some pretty easy tasks, like, for example, on Google Jamboard, put some ABC cards and have them move the ABC cards from the left side to the right side, as they say. So practicing ABCs as they move on. So A, B, C, D. It's a really simple task, but for students, it's really important because it builds that kind of natural approach to the device. And at the same time, they're practicing the language. So there are two goals here. In 4th grade, they know, especially in Japan, they practice how to write in Romaji. They kind of recognize more ABCs, especially small letters. So you can start having them type, but again, we're not having them write entire sentences. Again, you can give like simple tasks, or like on slides or Google Docs, where they have to fill the spots with a specific letter. They can fill like rabbit and leave the R out, and they can listen to the sound and put the R inside. So just simple movements. But as you go, step by step, they're going to get faster and faster, knowing where to find each letter on the keyboard. 5th grade is when you start doing more. And that's also because from 5th grade, English turns into a subject. So you have clear goals. You have textbook, which is pretty, it's rich in information and everything else. So from 5th grade, you can have students start actually making things. But by making things, it's still not to the point of, hey, now make this presentation from zero. It's still giving them a presentation, and they have to kind of like make small edits. Okay, put the picture here, put the sentence here. And they're going to use all the sentences that they should be writing already because of the curriculum, which from 5th grade requires students to copy what they see on the textbook. What usually happens with paper and pen, you can still do that, but then you can also have them type on the keyboard. Plus filling the spots with some pictures or videos or whatever, depends on what kind of instructions you give. But you're still giving them a pre-formatted file. From 6th grade, they now know how to edit pre-formatted files. So it's time for them to just do the job. So focus on the goals, focus on the target language, and then just give them the freedom to make things. And again, they're not working by themselves. You can have them work in pairs or groups, depending on their level. Now, and I think it's pretty clear from here, but you're not actually teaching them how to do something from zero. They're actually acquiring the digital skills by just doing what they should be doing in English. So you're saying, okay, practice ABCs. So instead of giving them the small cards they can use on the desk, on their desk, they're using the tablet. They're moving the digital ones. Instead of saying write an R in the missing piece of paper, you're saying type an R in the file. So we're not saying, okay, this is Word. In Word, you make this. You're not explaining. It's the same thing you do with English. You don't explain, you demonstrate. So by demonstrating, you're actually teaching, showing them how to use these tools. So it's kind of like a silently, quiet introduction. And you can also use some standard practices. For example, 3 that I use with 5th grade is reflection sheets, which are now digital. I actually use Jamboard, so they actually write all of their comments there. I've created a background with specific questions, and they answer, and they move around the answers where they need to. And the second one is recording in pairs. So whenever it's time to prepare for a presentation, in pairs, one records the other person. So they basically are getting used to looking at in front of a computer, of using like videos and audio. And it kind of like, I've seen that it works a lot with students that are usually not really engaged in the classroom. So when you're just saying, okay, stand up and just try prepare for the presentation, it doesn't really work. Instead, if they know they've been recorded, it kind of puts that kind of like pressure kind of thing, but it's a positive one because they feel challenged. They want to see what it looks like afterwards. And another point that I want everybody to keep in mind is that there is no one way. We all use computers in different ways. We all reach our software. We use shortcuts. We have our own setup. So since we're not really teaching them how to use them, but we're just showing them how to use, we should also give them the freedom to reach the app or to reach the specified goal the way they want. There's no one way. Otherwise, you're just teaching, do like this, this, this. So if they do it in different ways, just let them be. Oh, that's how I usually take this. Now, let's go a little bit into the main. So what does it really mean in a classroom, taking a unit? What's the purpose of ICT here? So let's take an example. The goal here, 1 unit, 8 hours. The goal here is to ask and talk about daily activities and habits, okay? So targeting language is daily activities, wash my face, go to school, play soccer, and frequency adverbs, usually, sometimes, and so on. First 2 units, as usual, introduce the unit goal, create a setting, discuss the context. Here, it's a good time to put, for example, if you want, the Google Jamboard in order to have them reflect on the unit. Lessons 3 and 4, it's a standard as usual, language exposure. So I give them listening, give them the usual tasks. You don't really have to force yourself into using ICT here, unless you have some tasks that you think work better using the computer. But it depends on the unit. 5 and 6, you move towards a final performance task. So have the students actually work on the language. It's around the end, around 7 and 8, when students can actually start seeing the purpose of this. For example, we're talking about daily activities. The purpose of this is basically to ask other peers what they usually do. What do you usually do on Sunday? Oh, on Sunday, I usually play soccer. What time do you usually have breakfast? I usually have breakfast at 6 p.m. But just giving these question answers, when they finish a dialogue between 2 and they move to the second one, it's over. Instead here, for example, think about using Google Forms or making a questionnaire. So students actually get to ask, they have the time, they can prepare a list of questions, they have the time to write down the questions, think of what questions they actually want to use, which might be questions that are not in the textbook, which otherwise would not be included inside a target goal. Have what time do you play video games, for example? It kind of like builds also that kind of interest towards their peers. And at the end, they have something because they record each question and answer. And at the end, they can actually go through and see all of the answers and see how they compare. What, for example, I usually play video games at 5. What about my other classmates? Oh, if I look at this, they usually play video games at 4. So I usually play. I don't play at the same time. Or they can talk about what time they notice about what time they go to sleep. There's a lot, and this is not a practice that just remains here. It's something that they can also use in other parts of their school life, even for jidokai or other activities like that, asking and collecting answers. Another example, talk about your best memory of your school life. And here is basically what I did the first time last year, which usually it's the goal is to talk about school events and use the past sentences. In this case, I enjoyed, I went, I saw. But again, if you're just asking the students, hey, what do you remember about 6 years of your school life? Most of them are going to be like, kind of like, yeah, kind of remember doing something like that, but it doesn't really stick. So in our case, what we did was to put the actual pictures taken by the homeroom teachers during 6 years, put them in the Google Drive, and had students actually browse through the pictures. And at that point, they were like, oh, yes, we did this. Oh, yes, we did that. And so at the end, instead of just talking randomly about a past event that the other person probably that doesn't even remember, they actually made a presentation, in our case, using Google Slides, by using both the target language and also the pictures. So they had something to show, something to kind of like turn on their memory, and it's, oh yeah, remember this, and remember about friends and what they did together. Another example is talk about a country you would like to visit. Again, and for this, I'm going to show you. I actually have the part of the textbook. So we're using New Horizon for 6th grader. This is a textbook. And the unit is, let's go to Italy. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 countries. Okay, 10 countries. You have some information about places you can see, you can eat, you can enjoy. These are the three keywords here. So as you can see throughout the unit, they listen, they do the first stage where they listen and they have to connect. Okay, I want to go to Italy. In Italy, you can eat pizza and it's delicious. This is the kind of language they are using. Why do you like Italy? You can eat pizza. And at the end, they have to make this kind of like this paper card, this card where they have to draw something about the country they would like to visit and practice the final performance task, which is Italy is a nice country or France is a nice country. You can see the Colosseum, you can eat pizza, it's delicious. All of the language they've been using here, it's all things they have heard throughout the unit. So it's just fixed on these 10 countries. But what if students want to actually have heard about a different country, or they know they've been to another country and actually want to introduce that one? If you take a look at the textbook here, there's nothing you can do. Now, you could, if you start actively going towards each student and be like, okay, where do you want to go? Oh, I want to go to Nicaragua. Oh, okay, Nicaragua. What can you eat? Okay, wait, let me see. And do this for every single student, but that's impossible in a standard classroom environment. So what do? Here, you can use Google Earth. So students can actually look up the country, go there and start looking at what they can see. Looking at cities, pictures, there's lots of pictures also there, restaurants, what kind of food do they serve over there? They get lots of information that they actually want to use in English. Let them use YouTube. Look up the country and also add some audiovisual stimulus to the learning. Okay, they can also add that to the presentations. They can actually show, maybe they've been to that country and they want to show their friends how it was, what they experienced. Have them actually research every country. And remember, at the end, the goal is using, in this case, the 3 words. You can see, you can eat, you can enjoy. But what they actually can say, it's now under control. They know what they want to say and they have the tools to actually say it. And so at the end, they could either do a Google Slides presentation. They could also use a Google Earth Stories, which is a pretty fun tool where you can actually do a tour around the country. So you're basically using ICT, and I think it's pretty obvious now, it's empowering students. It's allowing students to actually be in control of their learning, be responsible for what they say, and actually give them a chance of saying in English what they want to say. And it's about hearing about other countries, hearing about other things for the first time in English from their peers. So that's the real treasure. That's the real goal of using ICT. It's not about just, and again, you can use this in an online teaching if for any problems with Corona or whatever. It works, but that's not the goal. And I'm gonna quickly share some feedback from my students from last year's 6th graders. So basically, we did this my best memory about showing actually pictures about their memories, and they basically they had to create a presentation with Google Slides using the pictures. So at the first, they used a Jamboard to brainstorm ideas. What kind of events can we remember in groups? Some students remember specific events, some others remember different ones. Then this was the first time, so I had them fill already pre-formatted Google Slides. This was last year in February. And then last year we used Google Forms to do the reflection sheets. So this was the students' reactions during the first lesson. So some of the feedback. The lesson was fun and understood the goal of the lesson. This student, actually, I tried to ask the other teachers. This student had prior ICT experience. So for him, it wasn't about using the computer. He was already focused on the language. Another student wrote, I have understood that I can use the Chromebook to study English. Now, okay, you can use different tools to learn English, but that's not really the goal here. And another student was, I have learned how to make a presentation using Chromebook. This is totally out of our goal. We're not teaching how to use a Chromebook, but that's where it totally went. In general, how was the lesson? It was engaging, it was boring, it was good. 99% of the students that chose it was boring knew how to use a computer. So for them, it was kind of like pretty repetitive and kind of like nothing really challenging. Then this others, it basically what if it was difficult or whatever. And you can see it was 50-50. 50% of them, it was easy. The rest was either a bit difficult, it was challenging but fun, or it was difficult. So this is where for the first time, I noticed that, okay, some students know how to use this, and some students actually have no idea how to use a computer in the classroom. So again, we moved forward, and as I explained before, we started slowly filling the forms, and slowly kind of sorting out groups, giving roles, so that not everybody had the pressure of having to do everything. And in the end, they basically, when they completed the presentation, it was not just about presenting. And my best memory is a school festival. I enjoyed dancing. I ate sushi. It was fun. They actually felt the urge, the natural urge of explaining each picture. Oh, see, this is me. This is my friend. This is the school party. This is all the classroom and things like that. They actually had something to work with. And the other students were not just like looking at the floor or the roof, but they were actually interested. They were engaged in looking and listening to all of this explanation. And in the end, when they did the last review sheet, this was probably the best review, the best comment I've ever seen. At first, there were many things I couldn't understand, and working on the slides was very difficult. But at the end, I was able to make cool edits to the slides, pronounce well, and speak correct English. This kind of is it has everything. It has learning how to use the computer, and it has the goal is still on using English. That's it from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. So everyone, could you please take some time to unmute your mic? And if you would like to, you could turn on your cameras, and let's give Nicholas a round of applause. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, no one's unmuting your mic yet. Okay.
They're applauding with their.
I will do a single one for you right here. Okay. Okay. So we have approached our Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you may unmute your mic and pose your questions to Nicholas. Let's go ahead.
So what do you do if you have like higher level students who are kind of newer to this new curriculum? They haven't necessarily had that experience from the lower levels. We're basically starting now, but they're at a higher level. How do you not eat up too much of your class time with the fact that they actually don't even know how to turn these things on, for example?
Yeah, and it's a good question, because right now my sixth graders haven't really done anything last year. So they're doing this for the first time. And of course, you cannot just give them things to do and be like, okay, do it by yourselves. The key here is, again, giving roles. So I make groups. I choose students that I know how to use the computer, and put weaker students together. So they kind of learn from each other. That's kind of how I try to balance things out. And again, it's using ICT. It's not something that it's just now because we have the virus going on, so we need to use the ICT. It's something that it's a skill that it's been built, and also that's what MEXT is trying to do. Something that needs to stay. It's a new approach to learning. So of course, sixth graders are the ones that are gonna, let's say, suffer the most, struggle the most. So in that case, again, try to level down the targets, your aims for that group, but don't do the same also for fifth and fourth and third. So be pretty rigorous with how you introduce the skills. And with for this year's sixth graders, be understanding.
Thanks.
Thank you for your question. So we have Jackson who raised his hand. Jackson, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Sorry, I came in a bit late, just came back from a different session. So I'm sorry if I missed this already. But when you're instructing or kind of teaching or helping students learn how to use technology in order to learn in class, what is the balance of language being used with those instructions? And also, is it, or which teacher is doing most of those instructions, or is it like a half-half kind of thing?
In my situation, I'm doing this because the teachers in my schools don't really know how to use technology. So I'm actually also teaching teachers how to use all of this. And in terms of language, I'm almost 99%, if not 100%, using English. But the difference is, again, I'm not explaining, I'm demonstrating. So I have students look at the screen on the big TV screen and do everything step by step. So I ask them, okay, this is the desktop. See, this screen. Turn on your computers and get here. This, okay, then let's move forward. That's the kind, but I don't do this inside an hour. Again, you build these skills step by step. So one lesson, I would just be like, okay, get to the desktop, open the app, that's it. Write today's one message about today, how the class went. End of the game. Next time, okay, go back to where we wrote the message, and now please put something else, add a picture or anything like that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks very much.
Hi, Yoko. Sorry, it's still Nicholas's session right now. Your screen is being shared. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry about that.
Sneak peek.
Yeah, we get a special preview of the session already. Okay, no problem. Thank you, Jackson. Also, does anyone have any more questions for Nicholas? If not, I would. Okay, we have Daniel. Go ahead. You're muted, by the way.
You're muted.
Oh, well, my presentation is going to go well, isn't it?
Yep.
Thanks, Vic, for that. I just want to throw out a question there. I was in and out a little bit, so you might have covered it. But like, there have been occasional school closures in some parts, and this use of ICT. Do you have any experience with doing this distance with young learners?
Not in my case, but the way everything is set up, it can work, because in the end, we're talking about having students work on projects together, and they have the structure. They in our case, they use a Google environment, so they can actually. And I've already showed students once how it feels to work on one single file, 5 people at once. So they know the struggle of like deleting something that somebody else just like added and be like, what are you doing? And I had this once inside the classroom, so they could actually give each other feedback immediately, like, no, that's what I'm adding, so don't delete it, kind of thing. So it's in case we have to close, probably in our schools, English is probably the only subject that can move 100% online.
Okay, so you sort of prepped them for that eventuality, right?
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you for your question, Daniel. We have time for one more, and Jackson has raised his hand again. Go ahead, Jackson.
Sorry, a quick follow-up. I don't, Emily, you wanted to ask a question too. And
sorry. No, I don't.
Oh, no, really? Okay. I'm sorry if I missed it earlier, but are there classes where you are not teaching? So like, for example, in some schools where ALTs would go in only every other class. So I'm just imagining those situations where the homeroom teachers don't know how to do the tech part. Do they just give up on it, or it's like,
in my case, where I work at the place I work, the town I work, they're pushing a lot towards English education, so I teach every time. But I'm also part of being part of the school faculty is also to share information. So what I'm also doing right now is preparing videos for other teachers in order to show them how to do specific tasks with specific apps. That's being a good colleague.
Yeah, and being a very responsible teacher, which I wish more ALTs are like you. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your question again, Jackson. So are there any final questions? We have about 30 seconds. Okay. No more questions.
I think 30 seconds is
yeah, everyone has a great question. Okay, Nicholas, I'm gonna stop the recording right now. Thank you so much for your presentation. Everyone, one more final round of applause for Nicholas.
Thank you.
Okay.